Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Triple F Podcast, Faith and Family First. I'm your host, Eva Andrade, and I'm going to be speaking with Jim Hochberg today about the second constitutional amendment question that you're going to see on your ballot. So stay tuned. Let's chat about that. Welcome to the show, Jim Hochberg.
Hey, Eva, haven't seen you in a while.
I know. And so I already know what you're thinking. So I'm going to throw this out right away. I'm retired. I don't practice law, so I'm not giving any legal advice. And hopefully it's not the third one you say sometimes, which is I don't care.
Yeah.
So so which one is it today? We're talking about the constitutional amendment question, number two, about the judges. You were aware that I was interviewing Fritz Rolfing on the prior show about the constitutional amendment one question. So I'm going to repeat this so that all our listeners and viewers know this, that all people voting in Hawaii, their ballot is going to have two constitutional amendment questions. The first one is the one that Fritz Rolfing and I talked about on the marriage amendment. And now we're moving to question two, which is about the appointment of judges. So you were generously willing to give your time to explain this convoluted question.
Well, it's kind of like a civics lesson, the way I'm looking at it. I'm not giving legal advice.
Right.
And we've done a couple of shows about constitutional and charter amendments before. So I want to start with that. Recommend that maybe we can put in the screen below which dates and numbers of the shows they should go look. But my approach to these things are, look, if the proposer of this amendment is actually not trying to help me, they're trying to help them at my expense as a citizen, I start with no, I'm voting no, change my mind. Right? That's where we always start.
Right.
This is a classic. The legislature and the judiciary are asking us to give them more power to make their lives easier with picking district court judges. And so I'm voting no. I would urge everybody vote no. Let's look at it and see if our individual minds get changed as we go through the different parts of it. First of all, even before we get into how does the Hawaii judiciary work and all that kind of stuff, we got to look at the amendment language, and it's very, very long. And it breaks down into basically 5 different changes in one amendment. And when you see it, you'll notice that the paragraph is very long because there's 5 chunks being changed. So you either have to say yes to all, or if you can't say yes to all, you can't say yes to any because the one you don't like is the one you have to vote no. Got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Listener, viewer, got that? Good.
So let's talk about how the judicial system works in Hawaii. So, like almost everything else in Hawaii, we have very little control as citizens because of the way the Constitution is written. So we need to be very, very, very stingy with giving away any more of our rights by changing the Constitution to suit the government employees of ours to make them unresponsive to us. That happened already in big ways. This is just another one. So we elect senators and the governor. They're originally in Hawaii, under the original Hawaii Constitution from 59, the governor would nominate people he wanted to be judges. The Senate would hold public hearings. We could come down and testify about this nominee. The Senate committee would have to vote yes, a majority, and then the full Senate would have to vote yes, a majority. And so we had opportunities to impact who became our judges. We've never had the right to have our judges run for office. Florida, where I now vote, the judges run for office, not all of them, some of the lower courts. They have to campaign. I get to ask them questions. It's not just in a Senate hearing where I have my opinion. They're campaigning. I can interact, ask them questions. How do they feel about these legal issues? Blah. So we've never had that in Hawaii. That might be a better way for the people in Hawaii to have more control over who the judges are. But that's not what we have right now. What we have right now isn't even what we had at the beginning in 59. Along the road, I was going to look it up and I forgot. Somewhere in the 80s, when I was a lawyer, maybe in the late 70s, the legislature changed the way judges are selected. Now, a list of 6 or so names are given to the governor to pick from totally unelected people. So we've seen where judges have turned out not to be too good, and the governor who nominated them said publicly, well, I didn't really want to pick them, but I had that list I had to use. So that is a way that Hawaii insulated the elected officials from responsibility. That group is called the Judicial Selection Commission, and there are currently 9 members. The governor appoints 2, the president of the Senate appoints 2, Speaker of the House appoints 2, the Bar Association, the Hawaii State Bar Association, appoints 2, and the Chief Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court appoints 1.
Okay, so this is really interesting. I want to do a quick segue because we like to do this in our show, right? Where we get back to the importance of voting, right? This is an election season. And when you have the Senate president, when you have whoever the House, it's escaping me. What is he? The House, the Speaker of the House. Yes, thank you. Gee, I'm getting old, Jim. I'm getting so old. But anyway, so Speaker of the House, you've got these are people that are elected. But once they get into that office, then they're the ones that make these selections, right? That ends up on this list. So it's another reminder of why it's important to know who you're voting for and putting in that Capitol building, because they make these decisions and voila, this is what we have.
What I would much rather see at this time in the history of Hawaii, with the way the politics are so one-party ruled, is instead of us voting yes on this little tinker change that makes it easier for the people in power to get their judges, I would groundswell movement, and it's going to take 10 years, that the voters in Hawaii that really want to own their government, which I've talked about, the truck across the street, the food delivered in the restaurant to the people on the table next to me. We need to own our government. I would like a push to amend the Constitution to get rid of the Judicial Selection Commission completely, and either have our judges elected by us, ourselves, or you guys at this point, it's not me anymore, so that you get judges that you want and you hold them accountable for their rulings by not voting them back in. And if that's too hard, at least we can make the governor and the Senate responsible for the judges they give us. They can't say this Judicial Selection Commission gave us these judges.
Well, exactly. And I want to remind people that the makeup of the legislature right now, that's next to impossible. I don't think that the people in office right now would go for that. But it is something that, since we're talking about this and there's questions on the ballot and people are being asked to vote something, I do think it's a great idea to have it in the back of their mind that there is a better way to do this. And if people want to rise and start being, what does our Hawaii State Constitution say? That all power resides in the people, right? So if we want to take that power back, then we've got to do something about that. And it may be a long game. But let's put that bug in people's ears. Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you were very deeply involved. How many years were you involved in the issue of same-sex marriage? How many years did the proponents push and push until they got it? How many years?
The first court case was in 91, right? And then the second one was in 93 or
So you're
94.
talking from 91 to 2014.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then, well,
If
2013 was when the legislature got involved and changed the marriage law in
so
that
if
special session.
if the people that want Hawaii to be exactly the opposite of the way we would like Hawaii to be can be diligent for 20 something years, if we want to win, we have to be diligent for 30 something years on the same issues. And if we're not willing to do it, we're not willing to own our government.
Well,
So point number two.
Okay, go ahead.
Point number one was the Judicial Selection Commission, and that this bill is just helping them do it more easily. And the worst part of the bill that's changing that is the part where the district court judges don't have to have hearings unless the Senate wants to reject a district court judge. Now, to understand that, I'm going to go to point two, which is how is the court system set up so you know what a district court, a circuit court, an intermediate court of appeals. So in Hawaii, we have at the very top one state Supreme Court. But a case never, hardly ever, although it can under very limited circumstances, hardly ever does a case start at the Supreme Court. They start at the trial courts. And we have two different levels of state trial court, depending, well, actually, I'm excluding small claims and the landlord-tenant thing. Other than those, which people do by themselves and they don't really need lawyers, there are two beginner trial courts depending on the value of the civil claim or the penalty of the criminal charge.
Okay, just because I know that a lot of people listening, right, don't have a legal background. And Augie, the interview I did with Augie, he really reminded me that, when we're talking about this kind of stuff, we got to take it to the regular person, the regular local person that just doesn't know nothing. So, can you give like a fake example of what an early case might look like? Like, I don't know, somebody talk about your neighbor's truck. He bumps into somebody and there's a small claim or whatever, and then kind of walk us through how a case like that might get all the way up, because I think that people can imagine it a little better. Is that possible?
Well, sister, hey, you owe me money. I'm going to sue you.
That's right. I mean, okay. So,
is that what you want me to do?
Yeah. I mean, so
the Jesus book?
The whatever will help people understand the process. So
give me doing on time, pal.
We've got some time. So
okay. So let's say you committed a crime, but the penalty was only a misdemeanor penalty.
Okay.
So you would have to be charged and tried by the state in a court called the District Court of the circuit that you live in. Each island, except for Maui, Lanai, Molokai, that's one district, one circuit.
So I'm caught. I'm walking in the street and I'm caught with a little bit of pot in my pocket, right? Because now it's a misdemeanor, right? So
there's no jury trial, and your sentence is less than a year in prison.
Okay.
Now, if you did something like robbed a bank, where your prison sentence could be, I think, maybe like 20 years or something like that, or you killed somebody, or you beat somebody up, and it wasn't a misdemeanor, it was a low-level felony or a higher-level felony, then you have the right to a jury trial. That is circuit court. If you're suing somebody for money for less than $40,000, you're in the smaller district court with the less than 1 year criminal charge. If it's more than 40,000, generally speaking, now you're in what's called the circuit court of the circuit. That's where your case would begin. If you lost the case or the other side lost the case and whoever lost wanted to appeal, you have the automatic right to appeal to the Intermediate Court of Appeals. If you don't like the result there, you want to appeal to the state Supreme Court, you have to petition. It's not automatic. So what happened historically with this Judicial Selection Commission is the Supreme Court justices and the circuit court judges had to go through a process that required a hearing in the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, where we could go and talk about what we like or didn't like about this proposed nominated judge. The district court judges were appointed by the Judicial Selection Commission, but then the Supreme Court the CJ, Chief Judge, would pick to be that. But then because a lot of these district court judges move up, the Judicial Selection Commission, I think, wants to make them go through Senate confirmation at the beginning so that they're not responsible for bad judges. It's like a CYA thing. So those are the different layers. So what they're doing in this bill is saying, okay, we're going to make the district court judges have to go through that Senate confirmation.
You said bill, but you mean the constitutional amendment, right?
Yes, I'm looking at a bill for an act.
Okay,
I'm looking at a bill for an act, but it's for a constitutional amendment.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the point is they're trying to take care of their own needs, and they're asking us to do something that sounds good, which is make the hearing happen, except the way they're doing it is they're saying that it requires the consent of the Senate, but here's the language they're taking out of the original language in the law. Let me say that this way. The way the law used to say is that the Chief Justice, with the consent of the Senate, will fill a vacancy on the district court by appointing somebody from a list he gets from blah, blah, blah. And then this is what they're taking out. The Senate shall hold a public hearing and vote on each of the appointments within 30 days of the appointment. And instead it says if the Senate fails to reject an appointment within 30 days, the Senate will be deemed to have consented. So they're eliminating the requirement for district court judges for that hearing. So I don't like that. I'm still a no. But then you have to ask yourself, when you look at this long paragraph, how does your mind get changed? These particular questions I ask. So I'm giving it out if people want to do it this way. Can I tell by reading this what they're trying to do? They're asking me to say, okay. And if they can't explain it so that I know what it is, why the heck should I say, okay? I should say, try again, make it something I understand. If you think you understand, and sometimes we can understand and turn out later we were wrong. We didn't actually know that's what it did. Like, remember the same-sex marriage amendment? Shall the legislature reserve the power to, appoint, to allow opposite sex couples to get married or something? I mean, it was crazy language. So you think you know what it means, and then you learn later, oh, that's not what it meant at all. So that's the first one. Do I understand what they're doing? Do I understand why they're doing it? Are they helping me? Or are they helping them and I'm giving away some more of my constitutional authority? Because you mentioned earlier, Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution of the State of Hawaii says explicitly, all political power in the state resides in the people. And if you go to Section 2, it says it's the responsibility of the people to maintain their power. And we're so lazy that we just give it away by voting yes. So the next question that you should be asking is, can I tell if there's any unintended consequences in here that are going to be problematic? And if I can think of any, then I'm not voting yes. I'm going to vote no. This is not a good thing. One of the unexpected bad things in this bill is taking away that required hearing in the Senate.
Yeah.
But you're not going to know that unless you watch this video.
Yeah, so if you're watching it right now and you're learning something, then I'm asking you to send this video to all of your friends so that they understand the question, because even though a blank vote is considered a no vote, it is way better for our legislators to see a clear yes or a clear no so that they understand the will of the people. And that's why we're doing these videos. That's why we're doing the explanation so that it's clear for you, that you don't just leave it blank. I mean, it's going to be a no vote if you leave it blank. But no, if like Jim said, he's giving you a couple of things to think about. If you're saying I don't like this, then say no, because it becomes very clear. Just like with the constitutional amendment question in 1998, when there were only 2% blank votes, people were very, very clear that they wanted to protect marriage between one man and one woman. But it was more than that, as we discussed last week with Fritz. Remember that the reason that the people wanted that is because they didn't want the courts to decide what marriage was. They wanted the legislature, which is AKA the will of the people, to decide what marriage should be. And it should be the same for all constitutional amendment questions. Sorry, I got on my
So
soapbox.
no, I agree with you 1,000%. And so as I'm going through my process of no, change my mind, I like Steven Crowder. He came up with that. I'll give
Yeah.
him credit for that. It's great. If you've never seen Steven Crowder videos on YouTube, you got to watch him because he goes to college campuses, puts a table up, sits behind it, puts a sign hanging down the table, something like "There are only two genders. Change my mind." That's
Yeah,
pretty gutsy.
and Charlie Kirk is doing some stuff like
Yeah,
that. So I
right.
mean this is what it is. It's like have a discussion and explain to me why you believe what you believe, and that's what this is. The legislature is asking us, should we make these changes that affect the appointment of judges, and it's up to us to say we like this or we don't, and that's the bottom line. So continue your points, Jim, because you got
Okay,
two in.
so when you read the part of the proposal on the ballot that says a district court appointee to be automatically considered appointed if the Senate fails to reject the appointment within 30 days of receiving the appointment notice. Actually, you know what? That's in the email you sent me. The actual language of the change. Hang on here.
So again, for those of you listening, or maybe you've just tuned in or whatever, we're talking about the second constitutional amendment that is going to be on the Hawaii ballot in the general election November 5th. And we're going through what it means.
Yeah, okay. You just basically cut and pasted out of the bill. This is the problem because you don't know that what this means is there won't necessarily be a hearing on district court judges that you can go complain about a district judge. If you've been to district court for a traffic ticket, for a landlord-tenant thing, for a small claims court, those are the least experienced judges. That's where you usually start in
Yeah, and
Hawaii.
you know what? First of all, my question would be, even if you weren't explaining this to me, my question on that would be, why would the Senate not have a hearing within 30 days? What would be their reason? Are they too busy? I mean, to me, if
Because they're just
there's,
going to vote yes anyway. So I would imagine what they're thinking is the district court appointee is appointed or nominated, and then the Senate looks at the name, and the president of the Senate's office asks the senators, anybody care? If nobody cares, they don't need a hearing, move on, just made their life easy.
okay,
That's
so
what I'm saying. See, this isn't for us, this is for their benefit.
so I like this. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. And so what I'd like to do is do something that we might be able to clip out and send to people. So again, this is the constitutional question number 2. And they're asking if the Constitution of the state of Hawaii be amended to make the appointment and confirmation process for district court judges the same as the appointment and confirmation process for Supreme Court justices and Intermediate Court of Appeals and Circuit Court judges, which would require, and they have 4 points there, and I'm not going to read them all because we don't have the time to do that. So on this question, Jim, if people vote yes, what is going to happen?
So the district court judges will be added in with the circuit court, the Intermediate Court of Appeals, and the state Supreme Court judge nomination process, except they're not going to have a hearing at the Senate unless the Senate objects. And it doesn't say one senator or half of the senators plus one? It doesn't say. So what I would like us to do, because in 2028, we're going to be asked, do we want a constitutional convention? This is a reason to want a constitutional convention. Start working on this now. We want to start electing our judges. The political one-party system is picking judges that if you're like me, you go into a case, they're already against you if it's on certain kind of issues that divide along political lines. Let's not do this amendment. We're voting no, and then we call our representatives and senators and say we're voting no because we want a constitutional amendment that lets us elect our judges. Get that going between now and 2028. Pick it up in 2028 when we're dealing with the con, and then take control of who's your judge.
Okay, I like that. So voting yes, you did a good job of explaining that and what we should be looking forward to. And if you vote no on this,
you should vote no on this.
Yeah. So if you're voting no on this, what's going to happen is that this change is not going to be made, and the Senate is going to still have to have their hearings, right?
The Senate will have to have their hearings they have them for everybody except district court judges. So there won't be hearings for the reason that language was taken out is they're adding district court in there. So under the district court paragraph, they took it out. So you should vote no because you're giving away your constitutional political power and you're getting nothing for it.
Okay. And to be very clear, if you leave it blank, it's going to be considered as a no vote. And as we mentioned in the last show, you have to have 51% of the cast votes for this to win. And so they'd have to get, out of all the people that cast their votes, they need 51% yes in order for this to pass. So you vote yes, and the change is going to be made, and the Senate is going to be able to, or these decisions are going to be able to be made without any input from the people because there's no hearings, right? If you vote no, you're taking back your power. And Jim is adding a caveat on there that we should be working toward having a constitutional convention to start really talking about this so that maybe this whole section is removed. Okay, so we have about a minute left, Jim. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for you to do your last minute pitch about voting because I know you're very, very passionate about this. They're expecting voter turnout to be lower than in prior presidential years because of the presidential race. There's a lot of people, and I've been out doing trainings, as you know, and I cannot believe how many people are coming up to me after these presentations and saying that and these are Christians I'm talking to, that they cannot get behind Kamala, and they really don't feel like they can get behind Trump either, and they're really struggling on that presidential race. So give us one of your Jim Hochberg lectures about why we need to vote, and then we'll end it.
Well, I'm going to tell you why you should vote for Donald J. Trump.
You cannot do that on this show. No, you cannot do this on this show. You're going to get me in
All
trouble.
Right, then I won't.
Okay. But if you want to know,
whoever you're going to vote for the team that will do what you need in your life, and don't care if she cackles like a goose or if her vice president guy just looked kind of dumb in the VP debate, or if you don't like the tweets and the way Trump calls people funny names. Look at what they're going to do for you based on their history. One was in office for 4 years and did stuff. One's been in office for almost 4 years and done nothing. That's what I would say.
And for those of you that have seen my presentations, what are the P's? What are the 3 P's that I've been telling everybody that you need to look at when you're voting? And if you want to know more about this, you'll have to go to our website and find out where I'm doing these presentations to get the full thing. What are the 3 P's? The first thing is, what are
Peter,
the principles?
Paul, and Perry.
What are the principles of the candidate? What's their priorities? And as I told people that come to the workshop, priorities are what they have done. If they've been in office, what are the things they have done? And of course, what is their plan? What do they plan to do once they're in office? Those 3 Ps, with adding prayer in there, are what's going to move the canoe forward. And so, Jim,
God, that sounds like Alan Cardenas.
Nope, it was an Eva Andrade this time. I take full credit.
Nicely done.
All right. Well, Jim, I appreciate you spending your time today. Please visit hawaiifamilyforum.org for more information about the constitutional amendments. And we will see all of you next week. Mahalo, everybody.
Aloha.